Hello and welcome to the Regional Admission Counselors of California's presentation on considering out-of-state schools. We'll be talking about why you should be expanding your horizons to add out-of-state colleges to your university list and generally what those benefits are and maybe even dispel some myths as well. If you don't already know us already, RACC or the Regional Admission Counselors of California, we're a bunch of admissions counselors who mostly live in the state of California. There's about over 170 of us representing about 119 different schools who are outside of the state. And we're essentially making sure that Californian students and families have access to these resources. And we are also understanding of the difficulties you're facing in California, and we work in your time zone. So it's really awesome that this is a great resource for you. So really to begin, why we think you should be considering out of state. Firstly, if we just take a look at how many different college options there are out there are so many. You're really honestly fortunate to live in a state that has so many college options alone. You have about 279 just in the state of California. But if you even expand that further, we're looking at about over 4,000 in the US alone. And then once you start including international schools, there's about 17,000 different colleges and universities. This allows students to have lots of opportunity to really find their true match and look maybe a little bit outside of just in your backyard. And we'll be talking about how finding your fit can be more than just a financial fit, it can be a social, emotional fit, and really allow you to expand your options and horizons. So, first and foremost, there are so many different schools outside of the state of California. We'd like to, of course, talk about generally the academic benefits, and some big ones are going to be a lot of out-of-state schools aren't going to have impacted programs. That's a pretty unique phrase and unique thing that happens in the state of California, where certain majors have a limit or a cap on how many students they can admit per year. This makes it competitive to get into those programs, makes graduating in 4 years sometimes really difficult, and generally it might mean that you may end up looking for other options. So, really popular programs like business, nursing, engineering, those are going to be some heavily impacted programs. And if we're looking at other out of state institutions, a lot of those programs are impacted because they are not going to be receiving the volume of applications. So, this also allows for way more direct entry opportunities, especially in things like nursing, for example. And because you can actually get into those programs that first year, your freshman year, that 4 year degree actually means you're going to graduate in 4 years. And so that's not only saving you time, but ultimately that does save you money. And because there's going to be less applications, you're probably going to be looking at higher acceptance rate as well. And so let's kind of take a look at how acceptance rates compare generally across the state of California. So if we're just looking at some private state schools in the state, we're looking at some pretty low acceptance rate, even though these universities are in theory here to support Californian students. And if we're taking a look at this, you'll actually note that San Diego State, even being a CSU, 38% is fairly low for being a public institution. But generally do note that these schools are getting so many applications. Again, that's what contributes to that level of impaction per majors and what contributes to some students not being able to graduate in 4 years. And now you might be thinking, this doesn't surprise me. You know, I'm used to seeing this type of acceptance rate. That's normal, right? But we're also here to dispel the myth that that's not actually an average college acceptance rate across the country. So if you were here in person, we'd have a little pause right now and we'd say, now what do you think is the average acceptance rate? And actually what it is it's about 68%. So those 12, 13, 38% is honestly significantly below average. And so again, when you go outside of the state of California, those acceptance rate really start increasing. And that's also why those options are going to be a lot more plentiful as well. Another big thing for students is, okay, great. I'll consider going out of state. You know, I can get into my program, graduate in 4 years, but I've heard it's pretty expensive. And so we like to talk about that a lot of schools, they have a sticker price, and it's usually pretty shocking. And that's going to be including everything, the cost of attendance or COA, not only what does your class cost, but how much is housing, how much are additional fees, and things like that. Here are going to be some average prices for various UCs, CSUs, and then some out-of-state schools and some private schools as well. I will note that private schools are always going to have a higher sticker price and they might have a higher sticker shock. They tend to have a lot of different scholarships. So don't necessarily always feel like you have to write off schools because they're so high initially. There are tons of different scholarship opportunities, and we'll be talking about what that may look like as well. But in general, sticker shock is very predominant, and on average, students are typically paying less than the sticker price. And we're looking at about 86% of students who are paying less than that. And if you go to this QR code on the bottom left, this net price calculator is a really great way to, especially if it's the springtime and you're a senior, you applied to multiple schools, you want to actually truly understand how much you're going to pay. Yes, tuition is important, but once you account for maybe traveling, housing, those additional fees, how much is my net price going to be? You can go there and it's a really great tool to utilize to have a better understanding of that price. Which really leads us into highlighting those financial benefits of going out of state. There are a ton of out-of-state schools that recognize there are so many Californians here in the state and that they're not all possibly going to be able to go to their in-state schools. So there's a lot of universities that offer special scholarships just for being a student from California. And then add that on top of the many institutions who are part of the Western Undergraduate Exchange, about 150 different public schools on the West Coast. There's opportunities to save some more on tuition as well. If you want some more information on WUI, we do also have a separate WUI presentation on this channel as well. And then merit-based scholarships and need-based scholarships and grants are going to be abundant anywhere you go. So don't feel like, you know what, I'm going out of state, I'm not going to be able to take that Cal grant with me. But you're still going to be able to qualify for something off of FAFSA. If you're doing the private school application, you can get some money there as well. And generally, if you go outside of the state of California, your cost of living is going to be way lower than the state. And that's coming from a group of us who also live in California serving you. So we recognize that we've all made the choice to live in the beautiful state of California. But if you want to go somewhere for college, save some money, you can always come back to the state and you can work here as well. A lot of these institutions that are out of state have a really robust alumni group or associations here too. And generally, if that isn't enough to sell you, you can get into your program in 4 years. Sometimes there's lots of great ways to save money. Personally, going out of state really expands that growth. So you're really able to get a little bit of outside of your comfort zone, make new friends you maybe otherwise wouldn't have met, especially for going internationally, a chance to experience a whole new way of life, maybe even learning a language. You can try some new food if that's really important for you, going somewhere that has some new flavors that you can add to your plate. And generally, you can come back and you're going to have those friends for the rest of your life. So you're making those connections, you're building those bridges, and that's going to carry on into your personal and professional career after you graduate. It's kind of as we move forward, we're going to use this presentations at in-person events where we're really encouraging students to talk to college reps. And in general, whenever you have that opportunity to do so, be prepared to ask meaningful questions. And some important questions that you can think about, and this could vary per student. This isn't a one question fits all. Really think about, what are you looking for in the college experience? It's important to you to know that there's going to be students like you. And generally, you also want to know, what is it about your school that maybe is going to set it apart from other ones? Test scores are, of course, really big because I know many schools in California are requiring them. So if you submit them, how does that affect the admissions process? How can you prepare to be a student at that institution? And if you also want to know, again, what that social life is looking for, what else happens on that campus or in that city where that university is outside of classes too. So just a little snapshot of things you can be thinking about, because you're going to be able to take that brochure home. You can look things up on the website. But when you have a rep in front of you, it really allows you to ask those more personal questions that are important to you. So generally, if you haven't considered going out of state, I highly encourage you to do so. Take advantage of the opportunity to connect with all the different RACC admission counselors here. We are here to serve you as Californians, and We're in this job because we also love answering questions. We love helping with the college admissions process. I also encourage you to think about talking to a school you've never heard of before. If you take a look at our RACC directory, you're going to find so many different schools. Again, internationally, really small private schools all throughout the country. There's so many wonderful institutions that are here, and they would love to have you on their campus. And think about some questions and what's important to you as a student, and consider asking those. So I really appreciate your time. I hope that this helped you better understand that RACC is really all for going out of state and that we are absolutely here to assist you. And if you do have any questions, take a look at our website and let us know. Thank you.